Welcome to another episode of Gospel Entrepreneurs in partnership with UCB. And I'm thrilled that today I'm going to be speaking to Joe Lowther, who is actually the CEO of Kick. And what you'll get out of this is vision and values, those visions and values that he put right through the DNA of this organization. It was so much fun and so stimulating. So sit back and enjoy this episode. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, great to be here, Roy. Thanks so much for having me.
Where are you?
I'm in Southwest London, excited to be here from the lovely Holy Trinity Richmond Church, where Kick's offices have been based for the last 22 years.
Wow. Before we get into that, just give me a bit, who are you? Married? You got kids?
Yeah.
Just a little bit of who you are, Joe.
Would love to, yeah. So I'm married to Laura. We met at university where I studied film and television, and she did psychology and counselling. And
is that so she could understand you, Joe? Was that part of it?
Oh, goodness, yeah. An absolute basket case. I cannot tell you how helpful it is to have a wife, particularly as a verbal processor, who is psychology and counselling degree graduate. You know, it is, oh man, I can't think unless I speak. And so to have Laura having those competencies is extremely helpful. But we've had three brilliant little men in Theo, who's 14, Seth, who's just turned 12 last week, and Joshua, who also on the same day of March the 4th, turned 9 last week. And so, yeah, they are great fun. They keep us busy. I had three sisters. Had no idea how to manage brothers, but I've suddenly got from three sisters to three sons. I absolutely love it. It's so fun, much less strategically difficult than having three sisters, let alone three daughters. It's really good fun being a dad to those boys. Absolutely love it.
And it's pretty unique to have two boys that have got a birthday on the same day. I mean,
crazy,
that must be...
And it was their due date, which is even more unusual. I think something ridiculous that only 18% of babies get born on their due date. And it was the due date, which we thought, well, thankfully, it's never going to happen because it's the due date and it rarely ever happens. You know, 81% of babies or 82% never happen on there. And it did. He literally was born on time on the due date.
I'm a dad to two sons and two grandsons, so we can't produce any girls in our group.
Well, look, I grew up with three younger sisters. I assumed I'd have three daughters, and we just couldn't build a girl. You know, we tried so hard to build a girl, and I felt terrible for Laura. Poor thing, she's got three sons. So, yeah, it's great fun.
Hey, we better move on. You used to be a head teacher in London.
Yeah.
Not too far from where I was brought up. I was brought up in Hackney, in the East End of London, and you were a head teacher in that area, weren't you?
I was. I was a principal of a school in Tower Hamlets, and it was a really enterprising entrepreneurial charity that grew from 5 staff to 250. And we had an entrepreneurial chief exec who really I learned so much from. And we founded our own school, and I became principal of that school. And we achieved outstanding at Ofsted twice in 2010 and 2014. And so it was an amazing environment that, as I say, I joined when there was 5 people there. And God grew the thing to 250, and there was lots of challenge and pain in the growth, as there often is, and particularly when lots of us were quite early in our careers, kind of experiencing that kind of growth. But yeah, I was there for 9 years, from about the age of 23, I think. And so, yeah, I really cut my teeth on how to lead during that time, and God was very good. We grew to have a school that had 80 Key Stage 4 learners, so that's 14 to 16-year-olds. We had 450 neat 16 to 18-year-olds, 150 young unemployed 19 to 24-year-olds, and then we'd placed 250 of them into apprenticeships in Canary Wharf. So it was an amazing, amazing environment with lots of dynamic social enterprises and things. And as I say, yeah, lots of different things we could have done better, but equally very, very grateful for the lives that we were able to impact and the hope that we were able to bring to Tower Hamlets during those years.
And it's kind of interesting, Joe, because I know you've mentioned to me that when you were growing up, you just really had one vision. So you're in this massive school, but if you were to look at you as a child and what you actually wanted, it wasn't that, was it? What was it?
No, yeah. When I was 11, they did target setting, And everyone was putting, astronaut or boxer or Premiership footballer or whatever it was. And I thought, what is the one target that I really, really want to do with my life? And quite honestly, it was to get married and become a father. So that sort of concept of family was very important to me. That was what was much more important to me than a career. And so I think I've tried to model that in my leadership in certain decisions. Like I did my film degree. My dream job was working for Sky Sports News. I got my dream job. I was so excited to be there. I thought, this is exactly what I want to do. It's sport and it's media, it's television. I want to become a presenter. In fact, the guy who presents Soccer Saturday,
Simon Thomas,
brilliant guy. So I started working for Sky Sports News at a similar time he did.
Right.
And he just finished at Blue Peter and he was a Christian. And so I knew this. And so I had a couple of chats with him briefly when I was just starting out as a runner. And I thought, presenting is exactly what I want to do. And I'd love to do it. As I say, I'd done the film television degree. But I realized that 24-hour news is not always the most conducive to family life. Essentially, I just go to church twice a month. I'd be on shift and rotation patterns where I'd either work from the evening through to the middle of the night, or from the middle of the night through to midday, or on the third month, I do a 9 to 5. And so I was like, I won't be able to go to home group. I won't be able to see Laura when she's not working. So I just thought, this is not more important for me than family life. And so essentially what I did was I made a decision to leave that and go in to do media training, which is how I started at the school. And it was fascinating stuff.
And I think it's really interesting because you were true to yourself, that family piece. I know it was linking to not seeing Laura, but actually the real sweet spot of you is like, I want to be leading something or in something that has family values at its core. And you had that at 11, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It was possibly perhaps prophetic that the Lord wanted me to care about that. And he laid that on my heart, really laid it on my heart. I have a great relationship with my mum and dad. And as I say, I care a lot about family. I saw family really modeled well to me as a child. And so it's something that I really aspired to have for myself. And so when I got involved in running, becoming a head teacher, I thought, actually, this is what I want to do, because I can be like a paternal figure to a whole bunch of other kids, build a family with the staff team. And so we sought to do that at the school, and then have gone on to seek to do that. I've tried to do that with the Kick, what we call the Kick family as well. And essentially, I think when you build an organization that has that Christian ethos at the heart, and our ethos is to follow Jesus' example in the way that he loved young people and was relevant in the way he communicated with them. Essentially, we have two core beliefs. One, that we want Jesus at our heart, and two, that we are the Kick family. And so that was something that I thought, if we all have the same spiritual dad in God the Father, then we should learn to relate well to each other as equal heirs to the throne of heaven, but also understand how we have different roles within the organization as to how he's building.
I think it's really interesting, Joe, as well, that some people, when you're growing up, you've got to have a vision or a big dream, or, as you say, want to be an astronaut or whatever, when actually yours was, no, I just want to do family. And yet, the way you do family is, you may have thought it's just my biological family or maybe the family church, but what you've grown around those values is actually why probably the success of what you did in the school with some of the most broken family settings in that particular environment, because you held that value as an entrepreneur. You're like, this is my sweet spot, and we can impact these lives in a way that others can't. Whereas if you said, I just want to be the most amazing head teacher or the amazing sports personality, that wouldn't have been what Joe Lowther is. You're not that. Hey, you may be able to do it, but your DNA is family.
That's right. And so at the school, I would see some horrendous examples of parenting of some of the kids. Why were they not in education, employment, or training? It was often to do with absent or weak-willed fathers. There was such a sense of fatherlessness. We had one kid that was the first person to get a job in 4 generations of his family. So that is 4 fathers that had resisted getting a job for various different reasons. Of course, there were always different factors, and it's good to be compassionate. But it made me angry on behalf of the kids that there were often fathers that would just let the kids get away with whatever they wanted. I was thinking about it the other day. Jordan Peterson talks a bit about parenting, and he says about how often what a maternal role brings is that desire for engagement, closeness, connection, protection. And often what a father's engagement involvement is about setting free and preparing to exit a family. And so taking greater risks as opposed to taking less risks to protect, but the fathers want to take greater risks to prepare them to leave. I did a course called The World Needs a Father, and it was talking about how the mum is the most important parent or most important role model to the kids from ages 1 to 6. And then the kid starts to go through a transition, male or female. They start to go through a transition between 6 and 11, where the dad is the most important figure. And they want rough play, and they want to test the boundaries, and they don't want to be protected as much. They want to take a few more risks. And then their peers become the most important from 12 to 18, which can be a dangerous time because the peers only know so much as each other, but they want validation from their friends. But interestingly, then from 18 to 21, the children, when they become adults, actually return to the dad and want to know advice, guidance, reassurance. And so that the dad returns to being the most important person at that stage. That's just what the statistics share. But UNICEF identified fatherlessness as one of the 4 pillars of global poverty. Currently, 3.5 million children grow up in fatherless homes in the UK. And in the next 3 years, that's projected to sadly go to 4 million. And so that is over a third of all children in the UK will grow up in a fatherless home. And that is just not good enough. That's not good enough for all kinds of statistics. If you simply Google the life prospects of fathered and fatherless homes for kids, it is really, really discouraging. And so again, at KIC and previously at my school, seeking to provide strong male role models to boys and girls has always been on my heart, to help provide fathers, surrogate dads, if you like, to fatherless kids.
Amazing. We went on a bit of a roll there, Joe, really insightful and really helpful. So moving on, that entrepreneurial spirit, family, a core value, you moved out of the school and took on a role within KIC. When you took it on, it was quite a small organisation, wasn't it?
It was. I went from running the organisation had 250, but I oversaw a department of 120 staff, and I came across to KIC when we had 7 staff. But I really felt God called me to come to KIC. It was a funny scenario. I knew it was time to move on from the school, and I'd handed in my resignation and given them 10 months to replace me at Christmas. And it was Good Friday, and I'd heard about this little organisation called KIC that did sports, mission, and education. And I thought, well, I'm trained in education, I believe in mission, and I blooming love sport. Maybe this would be the organisation for me. I wonder if they had any jobs going. And then I thought, well, it's Good Friday, long bank holiday weekend. I'll contact them after on maybe Tuesday. So I sit back down, as a former film student might do, to watch The Passion of Christ. I know it's not theologically perfect, but I'm watching this film.
It's a great movie, though.
It's a great movie. It gets me in the zone, And so I'm watching it, and halfway through, I get up to grab a drinks break, and I check my emails. And the chair of KIC has emailed me saying that their director had resigned the previous day. They'd met that morning to talk about shutting down the organisation. And as they'd been praying, my name had come up. Would I ever consider leaving my job as a teacher to come work for them? Couldn't believe it. Absolutely couldn't believe it. And so I went through a process and was appointed CEO and started in November 2014 when we had 7 staff. And today we've got 97. So it's been an absolute thriller of a journey. We've learned so much, but God has been so good in seeing things grow.
And it's quite amazing. I know you just give a throwaway line, 7 to 97, but there's a lot of pain and transition and all of that within that. But the entrepreneurial gift, often what you find is because you do team so well, you were able to upscale and people trusted you. They probably felt this is a great family environment. I think more businesses operate better when there's love and family in that context, which is what you obviously brought. And you were able to upscale the model that you'd got to the level of where you are now.
Yeah. When I joined the organization, I could see that there was clear values as to how they operated, but nobody could tell me what they were. And so I came in, I thought, what is the DNA of Kick? And I started, and I would encourage anyone to do this, a leadership training course. It's called Outstanding Leadership, and it's run by Bayes Business School. And it's essentially 10 breakfast sessions around the core tenets of organizational leadership, outstanding leadership. And one of them was on values and mission and vision. And I don't know about you, but often mission and vision, people have different definitions. It's quite confusing. What is a value? Is it about something you value in terms of income? Is it about a particular virtue? Anyway, what was really helpful was it determined for me very clearly what mission, vision, and values were, so that I was able to use that framework and essentially build on the DNA that we had and articulate it. And so our mission was to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. At the time, the vision was we want to go to every borough in London. And subsequently, it's been that we want to go to the 15 regions of the UK in the next 15 years. But the point that was really powerful was when we defined what our ethos was, which is Jesus our heart, and then our core values, which we describe as like our black ball rock, where you crack open any one of us and you look inside and you can see what our values are. And our values are ACE2. And that simply is to be aspirational on behalf of every child and young person. So even when they don't believe in their futures, we believe in them. C, compassionate in our relationships with them. We want to care about them and treat them with respect. E, excellence, to be excellent in our service delivery and provide outstanding coaching, mentoring, and chaplaincy. I, intentional in our relationships. We want to be really thoughtful and intentional. If somebody supports Arsenal, we can't wait to rib them, or, Liverpool lost the weekend, ha, ha, ha. That kind of thing. Intentional to each individual. And then fifthly, the final I of ACE2 is to be integral in our decision-making. We want to be trusted and we want to build in an honest way. And so once we defined our ACE2 values, that was very helpful because then we could recruit staff that were committed to our Christian mission and ethos. And then we could say, this is how we do things. We care about being ACE2 in our practice. And so we weren't just recruiting coaches that were good at sport, but didn't care about the mission, or people that, that were Christians that then were half-hearted in their work. We were really signed up to these virtues, these values of how we wanted to deliver. And so I think one of the cool things actually on the World Needs a Father course, and by the way, it's been written by the former chaplain to the South African 1995 World Cup winning team, who's an amazing man. He encourages you to have family values, and it almost to create like a crest of honor with those values at the heart of it. And he says, have a mission statement for your family. So for example, we actually did this as a family, which was to grow godly gentlemen. I want my sons to grow up not being weak and pathetic, but being strong, but having the power to choose not to act, which essentially is the definition of what it means to be gentle. So like how a lion can crush a bone or carry their cubs in their mouths. It can be very powerful, but very gentle. So this lost art of growing godly gentlemen was our mission as a family. That's what we've sought to do. And then our values we determined were Alps. So to reach high for the mountains, which was to be aspirational, to love each other, to persevere. And so that was our little game plan as a family. So in everything I go into now, and I read another really good book actually called The Intentional Father by John Tyson. And it talks about how parenting is about discipleship. And so how can I best disciple my sons and pass on to them the things that I've learned and prepare them to leave the home when they're 18, that kind of thing. So as I say, we've tried to build in values to Kick, but as you say, they're inspired by that heart and commitment to family.
Amazing, Joe. You've got these mantras on so many things that you can just put out there, and I could talk to you forever around some of those things, which is why God has placed you in the position that he's placed you. But you're also very entrepreneurial. Although you've upscaled, you're still innovating within what you're doing at the same time. How do you live with the tension of that, Joe?
I think if you're going to upscale, you have to diversify. I am absolutely committed to that. And innovation is a part of upscaling in a big way. So when I first joined, we had 6 sports. Today, we have 40 different sports and dance disciplines. We added solutions-focused mentoring and resilience coaching to deal with mental health. So we've got the physical side and the mental side. And then thirdly, we thought, how can we better develop the spiritual aspect? And so we had this wonderful concept of what a Kick Academy is, where we partner with local churches to upskill volunteers to run extended sport or dance in the evenings at the weekend with a Christian message in the middle. But then we thought we might develop chaplaincy to offer that in schools. And so this holistic approach of the physical, mental and spiritual development of children and young people was very important to us. And so, yeah, we've really sought to innovate a lot across that period of time. And, we've got a few more ideas around how we might innovate, because not everyone is into sport. And if we want to reach a generation of young people within a generation of time, we've got to adapt to accommodate different interests. And so be that, music, we added dance, whatever it is. Somebody once said to me, I don't even like sports coaching, but I'd plant pots to see people enter the kingdom of heaven. And I love that. I love that heartbeat that he was missionally minded. And he was actually a very, very good sports coach, but it wasn't his number one passion. His number one passion was reaching children and young people. And again, big respect to him.
Big respect to you, Joe. So people are listening to this, they can check you out on Kick, but it's the value, it's the DNA, it's the upscale, it's what you've done. We're coming into land. Somebody may be listening to this thinking, well, I'm not sure what I had when I was a 9-year-old, but how do I kind of start? And it was really interesting because you hold those family values, then you go and do a degree on film. Maybe you're going to produce films about the family, I don't know. But then you went and did sport and realized that wasn't working. You made some significant choices, but it's all ground back to that original value that you held at 11.
It's really interesting. And I must admit this, Roy, I didn't see this about myself until you brilliantly pointed it out last month about how much that has shaped things. Personally, look, I was determined to be a film director. That's what I wanted to do. And so actually, all my work experience building up to working at Sky Sports News and doing my film degree was all geared towards film. And then I had that moment of, I'm choosing to step out of this because actually family is more important to me. And so that took over. But actually what was really funny, I always loved sport. And now I get to engage in sport and mission and education. And I get to be involved in media projects like this one. We're on a podcast today, aren't we? We're in the world of the media. I was on BBC Radio London last month and I was on television about 18 months ago. So these kind of moments actually is really lovely for me because actually, although I had that dream of getting involved in the world of media, actually I've still been able to interact with that, but in a completely different way, in a way which is much more cognizant with what I didn't realize was actually my deepest desire, which was to have time with my family. And so I'm really, really grateful for that God, has still given me access to media and sport through what I do. And so I just feel so fortunate to be able to lead, if you like, the Kick family that cares about sport and gets to engage in these different opportunities for the sake of a generation of young people. Honestly, I couldn't have timed it like this. I'm very grateful for it.
It's amazing, Joe. And we could talk on any one of the subjects that you presented. Obviously, it's an entrepreneurial podcast, Gospel Entrepreneur. This is about upscaling. But just as we come to land, somebody may be listening to this, a younger guy, younger girl, thinking, what would you say as we land? What's your final thing that you'd want to leave them with as a takeaway from our conversation today?
In terms of entrepreneurship, I mentioned earlier that values and mission and vision are crucial. Secondly, that innovation is important to diversify as you grow. But thirdly, I'd say training and development. When we made a decision to go national as an organisation, to grow out of the 28 London boroughs we were in, to go to the 15 regions of the UK, I did a master's in change management
Because input is big to you.
It just really, really helped me conceptualize, essentially verbally process through assignments and get all the intelligence from like academics on how best to upscale. And it was just so helpful to actually intravenously apply all my assignments to Grow and Kick. And so that just was masterful. I was fortunate to be challenged to do training and development alongside it. And so that really set us up strategically. We did that for 2 years before we went national, so that when we went national, we really knew what we were doing. We really had ironed out a number of different things that we could. And obviously there's learning along the way. But I guess those would be the three things: mission, vision, values, innovation, and applied learning and development to scaling an organization nationally. And we're at 9 of the 15 regions after 4.5 years. We've got plenty of work to do, plenty of work to improve and enhance. We've just appointed a COO and CFO that will come and join us, hopefully, to take us to another level. But yeah, we are grateful for what God's been doing and are looking forward to embracing this next season.
Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I think it's been a real delight and joy that we've connected as well over this recent period of time. And it's just been great. And it's been great to hear you today. Thank you so much for the story. And any one of those subjects is another podcast on their own. Because as you say, the fatherless, the family, and what you did. So you are amazing. You're doing a fantastic job. And thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Roy. It's been a pleasure. For all your listeners, go for it. It's exciting to be a gospel entrepreneur. Go for it.
Thanks, Joe. It was great to have Joe with us. And the thing about Joe is I think it's really important for all of us to find that core of who we are and then ask God to put us in that place where we can really see it. So that's my takeaway from today. And if you've been listening, spend time thinking what that is. And that may be as a child, it may be something that you've forgotten, but find it, step into it. Joe, thank you so much. This has been a great episode with UCB and Gospel Entrepreneurs. God bless you.